The man just ate one apple from the little girl, but paid her $1,000 and advised her that if she ever faced difficulties, she should go to his bar to find him. It turned out that the little girl's mother was sick, so she dropped out of school to earn money for her mother's treatment. She set up a stall selling apples outside the bar, but was driven away by the bar's staff. The apples scattered on the ground. The man saw this scene and promptly stopped the staff's rough behavior. He then picked up an apple, squatted in front of the little girl, and asked her why she wasn't in school. After learning the reason, he took a bite of the apple and smiled, saying it was very sweet. He then handed $1,000 to the little girl, telling her to use it for her mother's treatment, and the remaining money should be used for her school fees. The man told the little girl to study well, to gain knowledge and skills. Since the man became successful, he always helped people in need. He didn't know that today, one kind gesture would rewrite the little girl's life. The little girl quietly accepted the man's help and silently vowed to repay him one day. But no one expected that such a kind man would soon end up in prison. First, his pregnant wife killed someone in a drunk driving accident, and then his business partner was involved in smuggling. Both were people he valued the most. Out of his duty as a husband and loyalty to his brother, the man took all the blame upon himself and was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Before going to prison, the man foolishly entrusted his wife to his most trusted partner and transferred all his company shares to his wife, even divorcing her, just to remove any responsibility from his wife. He asked his wife to take care of herself and his ex-wife's son. His wife eagerly agreed. The man made thorough arrangements, thinking only of his wife. 12 years later, the man was released from prison. No one came to pick him up outside the prison gates. Once a man of great prestige now, his clothes were tattered, and he was penniless, falling from grace like a beggar. But he still had hope in his heart, believing that his wife and son were still waiting for him. There was always hope for the future. On the other hand, the little girl from before had grown into an adult. She always kept an eye on her benefactor, knowing that the man was being released today. She arrived half an hour early with her assistant to pick him up, but halfway there, she received word that the man had been released an hour earlier than expected. She immediately told the driver to change course and head to the bar, convinced that the man would return there. Sure enough, the man made his way step by step to the bar. This place had once been where he spent all his money and energy to build his business. He wanted to see how his ex-wife was running it, but as soon as he reached the door, he was stopped by the security guard. He learned from the guard that the owner of the bar was not his ex-wife, but his partner. The man said he was the big brother of the bar's owner and asked the guard to pass on a message. The man looked forward to meeting his old friends again, but he didn't know that a humiliation was waiting for him. Finally, his partner arrived. The man stepped forward, wanting to catch up, but was kicked to the ground by his partner. His partner pretended to be drunk and claimed not to recognize him. Then he pretended to be polite and invited him inside. He also notified the ex-wife to come. The man could see clearly now. His partner clearly didn't want to return the bar to him, but now he had nothing left. He could only endure and bide his time. When his ex-wife finally appeared, there was a flicker of joy in the man's eyes, but the first words out of her mouth were as cold as ice. The ex-wife said the way he bowed was handsome and ordered him to bow to her at 90 degrees. The man stared at her in shock and asked her how she dared to do this. Before he could finish speaking, hotel staff held him down, forcing him to bow. The ex-wife looked at him with disdain. She said she had been with him before because he had money, but now he was a man who had been to prison, with no money and looking shabby, and was no longer worthy of her. She linked arms with her partner and said, "Now, I'm the bar's owner." The partner also mocked him, saying, "Who would have thought that the once glorious big brother would one day be the one bowing to us?" It wasn't until then that the man finally realized that these two had been together for a long time. The car accident and smuggling case from back then were probably part of a conspiracy with the goal of seizing his wealth. The ex-wife openly admitted, saying it was his own fault for being so foolish, not only handing over his shares on a silver platter, but also willingly divorcing her. She was pregnant with the partner's child, and only after the man went to prison could they be together without any shame, and his wealth would become theirs without a hitch. The man was trembling with anger, but was powerless to resist. He realized it was now a fantasy to try to reclaim the bar, but he still hoped to get back some of his money. The man pleaded with his ex-wife and her partner, asking them to return him $1 million for the 12 years he spent in prison for their crimes. He said he would give up everything else. The partner smiled coldly and showed a cruel smile. He told the man to bark like a dog and he would give him $1 million. The man, thinking of his son who needed to be supported, swallowed his pride and barked like a dog. But the partner had no intention of keeping his promise. He gestured for his men to force the man to the ground. Then he threw $1,000 at him, mocking him by saying, "A beggar like you deserves only this charity." But that wasn't enough. The man asked, "Where is my son?" They cruelly told him, "Your son has already been sent to an orphanage." The man's heart shattered. The person he had protected with all his strength had now pushed him into the abyss. At this moment, the girl, still on her way, received word that her benefactor was being humiliated in the bar lobby. The girl was furious and wanted to curse. Whoever dared to bully her benefactor would pay the price. She urged the driver to speed up. This time, it was her turn to protect her benefactor. She would help him regain everything he had lost. The partner ordered his men to break the man's legs and throw him into a dumpster. Just as his men were about to strike, the girl finally arrived at the bar. She shouted angrily, "Let's see who dares to touch her benefactor." She quickly walked to the man's side, helping him to his feet, and softly asked him, "Do you remember the little girl selling apples outside the bar back then? The money you gave me back then not only saved my mother's life, but also gave me the chance to continue my studies." The man finally remembered her. He felt a great sense of relief in his heart. But the man was now in a desperate situation. He didn't want to drag the girl into his mess. He urged her to leave quickly, but the girl insisted on staying. She said she could seek justice for her benefactor. It turned out that the girl, through her efforts, had become the chairwoman of a multinational conglomerate. With her power and influence, taking care of a bar owner was no problem for her. The girl fiercely protected the man, and this time, it was the partner and ex-wife who were begging on their knees. The man thought for a moment and took the knife from the girl's hand, then walked towards the partner and ex-wife.